Welcome to my January wrap up. I read 7 books this month, which is like insane for January. I normally only read like 4 tops in January, and it also feels like a lot just because I've been kind of in a slump recently, just a general life slump. But yeah, I read 7 books. These are the 3 physical copies I have, and we'll just go through them in chronological order. So to start off the month, I finished Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This was a book I started at the end of last year, and it just took me so long to read. I feel like I have an unpopular opinion on this book, so if you really love this book, don't listen to my opinion. And also, if you want to read it, don't take what I'm saying literally, because I do feel like this is a book where if you can connect to it, you're gonna like it, and I just didn't connect to it. I rated it a 3 star. I can definitely see why people like it. And as I said, I think if you can connect to the 2 main characters, it's a really emotional book. But I just didn't. They're both not likable people, so to connect to them, I don't know, I just found it hard. I'm not very good at connecting to unlikable people, to be honest. The things that I did like about this book is the writing. I do think Gabrielle Zevin is very good at writing. She's very good at storytelling as well. She is very eloquent, I guess is the right word, and also you can tell that she plans out her books. Like, her books always have a very wrapped up ending. I read Storied Life of AJ Fikry and I kind of felt the same way about that one. I feel like it kind of revolves around some things other than gaming, and at the end, it's very much like a close to the story, but it also kind of reminds you of the start of the story. So that's what I did like. I also did like the other character that was Marks. So it was Sam Sadie, and then Marks was like the best friend of both of them that helped them with the video games. I really liked him, and yeah, I liked most of his storyline. And there was one point in his storyline I was really excited about it. So I think that also affected my rating without going too far into it. And the other thing I liked was how it did feel like we were in the 90s in a uni accommodation making a game. I've never been someone that's thought about what that was like to make a game in the 90s, but I thought it was really fun to read about. As for what I didn't like, the characters are unlikable. I didn't like that. I felt like it was on purpose and it's to do with what they go through. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, oh, well, I don't like them. But that's why I didn't connect to them. I also felt like this book was way too long for what actually happens. I think it could have cut off 100 pages and we still would have got everything that we needed from it. I also felt like the first half was really strong and the second half not so much, and then the storyline that I was enjoying in the second half kind of falls off. So yeah, that's honestly all my thoughts. I don't want people not to read this book because of my opinion, because I do think I needed to connect to the characters and I didn't. That's just the end of it. You might read it and feel the same way as me, but you also might read it and really connect to them and really feel emotionally attached to their story. So yeah, I would still recommend this book. Again, I still gave it 3 stars. I did like it and I would recommend it. Then, as a little palate cleanser, I read The Worst Wingman Ever, which is by Abby Jimenez. It's part of the Improbable Meet Cute series. It's a little romance novella, and I really liked that. I think it was a story about notes being left on a car and communicating through the notes, and then obviously at the end they find each other. It was just really cute. I feel like whenever I read these books, I'm if this was a full book, I would probably quite like it. So yeah, I liked it. I obviously am not going to rate it because it's only 50 pages or something, but it was definitely what I needed to get out of the Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow slump. So then I actually listened to Cher's memoir, part one. I got it on BookBeat, so I thought I'd just listen to it, and also Cher's voice is so unique that I really wanted to just listen to it and listen to her tell the story. I will say it's not all her narrating it, but the other voice actress in it sounds really similar to her, so I could hardly tell when they switched it up. I talk about this quite a lot in my last video, but I did really enjoy this one. As I said in that video and as I've said in previous videos, I just really like memoirs, and I don't have to know that person very well for me to enjoy their story. So I really enjoyed this. It's definitely like leading up to her fame, I would say. Like she's still somewhat famous at the end of this book, but not to the point that she is now. Also, I might be butchering her name. I realised that in the last video. But I say Cher, but I don't know if it's Cher. I do feel like it's quite long for how much happens in it because we basically just follow her life from zero before actually because you follow her mum's life a little bit up until like maybe 30. I think she might be around 30 at the end of this. So it's not like a big portion of her life. It's also not like, I guess, the peak fame of her life. So I'm expecting there to be a lot more in the second book. I just feel like I can't tell you loads of stuff that's happened in this considering it's 500 pages, if you get my drift. But yeah, I did really like it. I liked seeing a little bit of her mum and what her mum's upbringing was and like her career as like a actress and like a model, I'm pretty sure. And also it's kind of crazy to think that Cher, like, I think she was born in 1946, so the year after World War II ended. Like that's just crazy to me. But also it's not that crazy because she's literally like my nan's age. That's another thing I really liked. I liked that I got to see how Cher's life was growing up and like kind of thinking, oh, that's probably what like my nan and granddad were like when they were growing up and what their life was like. Obviously, not to the same extent. My nan and granddad did not grow up in like California and all these places that Cher grew up in, but I thought that was really cool to read about. Then I listened to Yellowface. This was kind of like an impulse listen, to be honest, but my mum has read it and obviously it's quite popular and I feel like it might have even won some awards last year or the year before. So I wanted to listen to it. I wanted to read it, but I just knew that I probably wouldn't read it. It came up on Book B and I wanted to listen to it and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like it was a good audiobook to listen to because the main character in Yellowface is extremely unlikable, but she's also kind of like delusional, if that makes sense. So like to hear this voice actress act it out and like a lot of the book is the main character convincing herself that she is in the right, and this voice actress, I feel like she did such a good job, so props to her. But yeah, I just really liked it. I wasn't expecting to like it that much just because it's kind of become quite a mainstream book. Also, the voice actress for Athena, who is the author that the main character Juniper steals from, basically. She was meant to be like a very well brought up British woman, and I feel like that just did a really good job. And also, because it's mostly or all from June's point of view, as in we're seeing Athena from her point of view, she maybe sounds a bit more like stuck up than maybe she actually was because June has very complicated thoughts about Athena. So yeah, I really like that, and I really like the little insight into what it's like to be an author. Obviously, she's got a very unique experience because she's stolen someone's work, and also she has presented herself as someone that she's not. I really enjoyed it. It was very complex. I liked seeing what she thought of like Goodreads and stuff because that's something I think about sometimes. Like, do authors actually read Goodreads reviews, even though I know that they're obviously told not to? And I would really recommend the audiobook for that. I can't speak on the physical book, but I loved the audiobook. Then I read The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This was a 3.75. I feel like I could have rated it a 4, but I'd already rated Yellowface a 4 and I really liked Yellowface, so I had to give this a 3.75. But I really did enjoy it. I just found that it was quite similar to the Inheritance games. Obviously, it came up before the Inheritance games, so I feel like I can't really judge it on that. But a lot of the characters just feel very similar. And I like the Inheritance games, so like I don't hate that. It's just kind of weird for me, like I still can't remember one of the guys' names in this book, but he's so similar to Jameson in Inheritance games that like I literally just think to myself it's Jameson, but it's not Jameson. And Dean is very similar to Grayson, in my opinion. They just all are kind of similar, to be honest, but I still really liked it. It took me a little while to read again, but I am in a bit of a slump at the moment, so don't think it's the book's fault. It's very fast paced as well. I will say this book feels like the romance is a bit more unnecessary than in the Inheritance games. I feel like in both books the romance isn't really necessary, but this one I feel like would still be a strong book without the romance. So at this point, I don't really care about it. Also, it doesn't really feel that romantic to me at the moment. But I will say I definitely prefer Dean for Cassie, and I preferred Grayson in the other book as well. So yeah. In terms of like the plot, I did really like it. I'm someone that likes true crime, so I do quite like that sort of thing, like her looking at the cold cases and stuff. But I am in the minority. I can always predict Jennifer Lynn Barnes' like endings. I don't know why, because I am normally really, really bad at predicting things, or not even necessarily bad. I just don't even think to try and predict stuff. Like I just let it happen. But in all of the books I've read by her so far, I have predicted the plot twist. Maybe we're just like, we have connected minds or something, but that's partly why it wasn't a 4 star as well, just because I didn't find the ending that surprising and it didn't feel as high stakes as it probably should have felt. But yeah, I still really enjoyed it and I'd definitely be continuing the series. And then I read The Answer Is No by Frederick Buckman. This is another short story that I read. I just saw it on Amazon Prime and I was like, I love Frederick Buckman. I've never had anyone talk about this. So I just want to read it. I read it like straight after The Naturals and it was like 60 pages, so it was really quick. It's a short story about a man who lives in an apartment block and his idea of like happiness is to just be left alone, pretty much. The book is kind of like a character study as well, or like a people study. It's kind of following like morality and like social influence, which I thought was really fun. There's something that happens towards the start of the book, and it like causes a trickle effect of all these other things that happen to the characters, but more specifically to the main character. Also, there was one character I was really confused about, and I did not think her like storyline was real. Like it was like a made up storyline, but it was real. So that was kind of crazy. But yeah, I would honestly really recommend this, especially if you like Frederick Buckman's writing because it was just very him. And then finally, I listened to Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This was one that came up on my Libby, and I've wanted to read it for a while, but I've just never had it that high on my fantasy TBR. But I thought I'd give it a go, and I really, really like that too. That one was also a 4 star, so I really liked it. I just feel like if I had read it, I probably would have liked it more. That's how I feel about almost all audiobooks. I don't think I've ever rated an audiobook higher than a 4 star. And yeah, I just kind of wish that I did read it physically, but I don't think I would have even read it this year if it was physical. So I'm glad I listened to it. It's pretty easy to follow, so I didn't mind that aspect of it, and that definitely helped in terms of listening to it. There wasn't like too much action, there was a little bit, and the romance was like very slow building, I'm pretty sure, from what I could tell. And that was kind of good because we just slowly like built into this world and these characters. The one thing I will say is that the characters, although they all had really unique names, they were so similar at the same time. So I did find it quite hard to like know who we were talking about by their names. I knew like the main characters, the two main characters' names, and then there was a few other names that I knew, like I'd recognize, oh, that's one of like the more main characters, but I'd have to wait for a bit of like that dialogue to pick up before I like knew which one of them we were talking about. But yeah, I really liked it and I did give it 4 star. I want to read the second one, but I'm not like in a rush to read it, if that makes sense. And I will hopefully eventually buy the physical copy, and I'll probably read the physical copy of the second one as well. So yeah, those were the books that I read in January. I had like a good reading month. I feel like I didn't dislike any of the books that I read or listened to. So yeah, I would recommend all of these books, I think. Yeah, I would recommend them all. And yeah, thank you for watching. I will see you in my next video.